Paul's letter to the church in Philippi come these very few verses, and yet ever so loaded. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So ends the reading of God's holy word.
Thanks be to God.
Invite us to pray. Source of all illumination, wellspring of love, we turn to you as we move through this Advent season, as we listen to the Apostle Paul's words to his friends in a church rather distantly removed from where he was. We ask for your blessing of understanding as we think about joy, as we think about gentleness as something of a prerequisite of joy. We ask that we would be your servants as we add to the joy and the gentleness of this world. Yes, this in your holy name. When I picture Paul sitting, trying to compose this letter to his friends in Philippi, imprisoned in a dank cell surrounded by probably a whole lot of rock with non-existent plumbing and no court-appointed lawyer, it's kind of hard to imagine joy anywhere nearby. In fact, whatever flame of joy burned within his little incarcerated heart certainly surpasses my understanding. Then again, joy is a funny animal. As others actually have pointed out recently, joy is not like its cousin, happiness. It's deeper, it's more mysterious, more holy. And as such, I think joy is not something we so much pursue the way we think of pursuing happiness. It's more something we welcome. It's a gift, something we embrace. Twice in this passage in rapid succession, Paul urges us to rejoice. Rejoice always, and let your gentleness be known to everyone. Somehow the two are connected, joy and gentleness. And I've been a little bit curious, after first encountering this passage again this week, to explore just how they are linked. So as a result, on this third Sunday of Advent, Sunday of Joy, I may spend a little time exploring gentleness to see what on earth it has to do with joy. Gentleness, I understand, as I dug a little bit more deeply into it, is translated as accommodating or yielding. Perhaps like a big pillow, like you might throw down on the couch before you watch a television show. Something that kind of sinks and sags as you settle into it. Or maybe like a Martian lander. At this point, you're supposed to go, what? Yeah, a Martian lander. So what does that have to do with this? What's a space rover have to do with gentleness? Well, lots, if you happen to be involved in the landing of the Mars lander, the one named Spirit, by the way. Mars, I understand from scientific evidence, is a rather hard planet, like Earth. And it's not like one of those inflatable Santa Clauses made out of nylon. When you hit Mars, you know it. Especially if you hit it at around 175 miles an hour. It can sting. Unless, of course, you happen to be surrounded by a really big cocoon of airbags. It softens the impact, which is exactly what happened to Spirit when it landed right around Epiphany Sunday, interestingly enough, on the planet Mars, 2004. It just sort of bounced along the Martian soil until it came to a stop. It sounds pretty easy. It wasn't quite that easy, and it was really expensive. But thanks to the high-tech gentleness of those NASA airbags, it did so successfully. Paul's challenge to his friends in Philippi was just about as great in the sense that the folks he was writing to were living in a very hard town. It's a city full of retired Roman soldiers. This new and highly suspect cult of Christians was smack dab in the center of a military retirement community. Not what you call a soft mission field. Pretty inhospitable town overall. And yet Paul urges his friends to let your gentleness be known to everyone. Not some, not people you know, everybody. And thinking about it in that way, it might be easier to plummet to the surface of Mars than it was for those folks who were early Christians to allow their gentleness to be made known in Philippi. Either way, you could be in for a beating. Gentleness sounds so gentle, conjuring images of soft pillows, kittens, and clouds, and cotton balls. But I think Paul was speaking about a rather strong and starchy gentleness that was grounded in a kind of rock-solid faith in the nearness of Christ. By the way, those airbags on the Mars lander are made of incredibly strong synthetic material. Sometimes it takes a lot of strength to be gentle. Another image comes to mind, and that is the old-fashioned punching bag. Not the little guys that are inflated up here, but the big ones full of sand, suspended by a big rope from the ceiling. You can wail on those things until you collapse in a heap. The bag is unharmed. And that punching bag can withstand all that grief precisely because it's full of sand. And it's therefore able to give with every impact. If that punching bag, for example, were full of oak, it would probably be damaged, and certainly the punching person would be damaged, and it wouldn't be much use. But there's great power in that quality of yielding. In Proverbs, you've heard this expression, a soft answer turneth away wrath. And it's true. That sort of gentleness can dissipate many of the hits of this world, thereby cultivating peace and joy. A kind of joy that radiates far beyond just ourselves. There are too many punches being leveled these days. Sometimes we, unfortunately, feel the impact of some of these Christmas punches, you'll pardon the pun, punches that have nothing to do with drinks coming out of a glass bowl. It is the season of life, there's no question about that, but it's also a season when feelings can be highly charged. Griefs can be heightened, and tempers occasionally do flare. And like Paul sitting in his cell, being gentle can be a real challenge. Well, Jesus didn't bounce to earth like the Mars explorer, but he did require a soft landing, provided at first by the gentleness of Mary and Joseph, and a gentleness that I think is sustained by you and me as we offer that to the people we encounter. As we yield, as we open, as we receive another, I think we bring Christ gently to earth. Of course, we don't have to do it alone, fortunately. Paul, God bless him, was pretty much on his own, stuck in that jail cell. We are not. It helps to have others around us who are similarly committed to gentling the world. Even the Mars lander didn't do it with just one airbag. It actually had something like 24 of them. There's strength in numbers. And there's gentleness too. I'm going to use another tree image. I love trees, so pardon me one more. But I think of the Colorado blue spruce. If you pluck an individual needle off Colorado blue spruce, you can draw blood with it. No question about it. We probably all have done it, inadvertently or not. But when those needles are packed together, they're still sharp. But you can hold on to a branch of a Colorado blue spruce without being unduly injured. Every one of us has our pointy, edgy aspects. But the beauty of community is that we are bundled, which, by the way, is the literal meaning of religion, the word religion. Bundled, and therefore our gentleness and our joy is enhanced. And each one of us, I think, is extremely important in offering that gentleness to the world. If you've ever enjoyed a nap, for example, suspended in a hammock, say between two trees, summer afternoon, you can appreciate, I think, again, another image, the gentleness of those interwoven strands of string or rope. Together they hold you. They let you sleep. But if a couple of those little ropes are severed for whatever reason, it's not as much fun when your foot sticks through or your elbow does. It can really ruin a good afternoon nap. Let alone if those ropes happen to be completely severed and you hit the ground harder than the Martian lander hits the ground. Gentleness comes in that interwoven strength of many working together. It's funny that I was thinking more about the Mars lander. Not only did those airbags soften the impact for the lander, they also lessened the impact on Mars. When that came down, there were no scorching blasted craters, just about a kilometer of bounce marks, right on down the dirt. And I'm convinced that there's a little bit of a lesson in that too. That is, humanity is able to draw closer together, to weave together, in all kinds of wild, crazy, ordinary, practical ways, like carpooling, or joining solar farms, or sharing local produce, or in any way creating community. We become gentler to planet Earth, this planet. As people of faith, I think what brings us together is the conviction that the Lord is near, particularly during the Advent season. We peer together into the sometimes inky darkness of a hurting world. And we wait for the appearance of that one who will bring us that joy. The joy that the angels proclaimed as they said, good tidings of great joy. Joy grounded, ultimately, in the gentle strength of a baby born into our midst, who is God. So let every heart prepare him gently.